The moment my boss fired me felt strangely quiet. There was no shouting, no argument, just a calm conversation in his office on a Tuesday afternoon. He leaned back in his chair, folded his hands together, and said something that instantly changed my life. "Daniel, we are going to have to let you go." For a moment, I thought he was joking. My projects were performing well, clients were satisfied. My last review had been extremely positive. Nothing about the situation made sense. But while he was speaking, explaining vague reasons about team alignment and recent concerns, one small detail caught my attention. He would not look directly at me. Instead, he kept glancing toward the door, like he was worried someone might hear the conversation. At that moment, I did not understand why. 2 weeks later, I discovered the reason. And when the truth came out, the entire office learned a secret my boss had been hiding for months. My name is Daniel, and until recently I worked at a mid-sized marketing company. The office environment was usually relaxed. We handled advertising campaigns for several growing brands, and most of the team enjoyed working together. My manager was a man named Mark. When Mark first became department director, everyone thought the promotion made sense. He had been with the company for years and knew most of the clients personally. But after a few months, something about his leadership began to feel different. Meetings became tense. Budgets were discussed privately instead of openly, and Mark seemed constantly stressed. At first, everyone assumed the pressure of his new position was simply overwhelming him. However, small moments began to stand out. One afternoon during a project meeting, our coworker Laura asked a simple question about campaign costs. Mark answered quickly and moved to the next topic without showing the numbers. Later that day, Laura leaned toward me and whispered, "Did that feel strange to you?" I shrugged and said, "Maybe he is just busy." Looking back, that moment was probably the first warning sign. But none of us realized it at the time. Over the next few weeks, I started noticing other small details. Mark often stayed in the office long after everyone else left. Sometimes when I walked past his office late in the evening, he would quickly minimize something on his computer screen. One night I stayed late finishing a report. As I passed his office, I accidentally caught a glimpse of the screen before he closed it. There were spreadsheets open that did not look like normal campaign budgets. Instead, they showed transfers between accounts. When he noticed me standing there, he quickly smiled and said, "Just reviewing financial projections." I nodded and continued walking. But something about the moment stayed in my mind. A few days later, another strange situation happened. Rian, one of my coworkers, mentioned during lunch that Mark had started approving invoices personally instead of letting accounting handle them. That was unusual. Still, nobody wanted to question a department director without proof. Office politics can be complicated. So the weeks passed, and the strange feeling remained quietly in the background. Then everything changed. 2 weeks later, Mark called me into his office. The conversation began politely. He talked about the company's direction and how departments needed to adapt to new challenges. Then suddenly, he said something that shocked me. "Your performance has not met expectations recently." For a moment, I stared at him in disbelief. That statement simply was not true. Every project I handled had been successful. When I asked for specific examples, his answers were vague. Communication issues. Strategic concerns. None of it made sense. Within 10 minutes, the conversation ended. I packed my belongings and left the building feeling confused and angry. But as the days passed, frustration slowly turned into curiosity. Because the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. Mark seemed nervous when he fired me. Almost afraid. About a week after I left the company, I received a message from Laura. Her text said something simple. "Daniel, I think something is wrong here." Apparently, she had been reviewing campaign budgets when she noticed several transactions that did not match official reports. Small amounts had been redirected from multiple projects. At first, the numbers seemed insignificant, but when she added everything together, the total became surprisingly large. And every single transfer had been approved by Mark. Suddenly, everything made sense. Mark had been quietly moving small portions of project budgets into external accounts, amounts small enough to avoid immediate suspicion. But over time, they added up. When he realized someone might start asking questions, he removed the one person most likely to notice. Me. Laura and I gathered the information and contacted senior management. Within days, the company launched an internal investigation. The results appeared quickly. Financial records confirmed the transfers. When confronted with the evidence, Mark attempted to deny everything at first. But the documentation was clear. Eventually, he resigned before the company could take further action. A few days later, the company director called me personally. He apologized for what happened and explained that Mark had blamed several financial irregularities on my department. That was one of the reasons my termination was approved so quickly. They offered my job back immediately. But by then, I had already started interviewing elsewhere. Sometimes the best revenge is not returning. It is moving forward. A few months later, I accepted a new position at another company. The environment felt healthier, leadership was transparent, and the experience taught me something important. Sometimes when something unfair happens, it feels like the end of the story. But occasionally, it is just the beginning of the truth. If you were in the same situation, would you investigate what really happened, or simply move on? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy dramatic workplace stories like this one, subscribe to the channel for more real-life confessions and unexpected twists.